Okay. And then the static is.
Sounds like somebody's listening from a mobile device on a metro train.
Yeah, it does sound like that. Mayor Shoki, why don't you start the quorum while you're starting?
And we've got some background. Hopefully we get through that. Okay, I will call to order the meeting of the Council of Mayors Executive.
Mayor Darge, Mayor Darge,
Here.
can you mute your phone? Mayor Shoki?
What?
Okay, I think it was Mayor Darge's phone.
Okay, all right. All right, let's start over again. I will call to order the Council of Mayors Executive Committee for January 19th, 2021. Thank everybody for trying to get on. It's in this world of technology government, it's an interesting time. This meeting will be recorded, and it says here on my script, I'm supposed to confirm that the recording has begun. As permitted by the governor's disaster declaration of January 8th, 2021, the determination has been made that meeting in person is not practical or prudent for this committee. To ensure that the meeting is as transparent as possible, we will post the meeting materials approximately 1 week in advance, provide a recording of this meeting linked on our website, and will take all votes by roll call. Cmap staff will read the names of the members that are signed in and then ask for any committee members that have been missed. So I guess that's what we want to do. Do we want to do a roll call then?
Yep, so I'm going to read off the names of the members who I see logged in. I have President Brady, President Darch, President Einhorn, President Gallagher, President Hayes, Mayor Rockingham, Mayor Ryback, and Mayor Shelkey. Are there any other members on the line who I missed?
Anybody out there that's not accounted on the roll call? All right, as I counted those in my head, I think we do have the necessary quorum. Am I correct in that?
I think so too, Mayor. Let's go ahead, and I'm still double checking some stuff. So let's go.
All right, do we have any changes in the agenda or announcements? All right, I guess we don't have any.
Mayor Shoki, Erin's going to speak, and she has the announcement and what she's going to say. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mayor.
Okay, at this time then, I'd like to welcome our Executive Director of Cmap, Erin, to give us some announcements. Erin?
Thanks. Happy New Year, everyone. Thanks for giving me a few minutes to share a number of updates from Cmap. One of my priorities is really to make sure that we're strengthening the communications channels between Cmap and our committees. We really want to leverage your expertise and experience and fold that into our work and vice versa. And I really want to make sure that I'm keeping you informed as much as I can during these digital times. So with that in mind, I've got a couple projects that I just wanted to touch on. In regards to regional economic recovery, we were tasked with pulling together a task force at the request of the region's 7 county board chairs in the city of Chicago. I'm co-chairing the task force along with Paul Goodrich, who's representing the city of Chicago's COVID-19 recovery task force and Choose Chicago. So we've been bringing together leaders from across the region. We brought them together in November to kick off some work on regional economic recovery. There are 3 working groups focused on economic development, workforce, and tourism. The groups met in early December and are going to continue to meet regularly and monthly to identify some immediate and some longer-term actions for the region. So transportation is really the thread that runs through each of these areas, especially as we think about where businesses choose to locate, which is highly related to economic development, workforce, where people and how they get to where they need to go for their jobs or home, and tourism, how people really get to those unique assets that we know our region has. So those are sort of the three core areas, and I know as topics come up that are relevant to you and your communities, we will bring them here to share with you as well. So the other couple things that we're working on, we've got a mobility recovery plan that's kicking off this month as well, with considerable impacts to our transit and our transportation networks right now. We really hope to bring together our transportation partners, our transit partners, and the Regional Transportation Authority to talk about what the future holds in regards to transit, multimodal transportation. And just thinking about where we want to be in the future, I know that we all had complaints about our transportation system prior to COVID. I think the opportunity here for Cmap as a long-range planning organization is to help us think beyond sort of just getting back to normal and identifying ways that we can, successfully build a transportation system that works better for everyone. So thinking about last mile connections, I know something that planners like to talk about, and things that sort of seemingly don't have solutions. I think now is the time for us to really use our collective strength to begin to address some of those challenges. We had new county board chairs appointed this month, elected and sworn into office. So since the November election, I've met with the 3 new county board chairs across the region. So Jennifer Bertino-Tarrant of Will County, Corinne Pirogue of Kane County, and Michael Bueller in McHenry County, really to share with them about Cmap, the resources, the Council of Mayors, and how we all work together on our shared priorities here. I look forward to continuing to work with them. And again, they're interested in the work of this committee. So the last thing I just wanted to note here is, well, actually, I just have 2 more notes for you all. We've got a call for projects open right now with the RTA. It'll open actually tomorrow, and it'll be open February 3rd to support the immediate needs of the region as a result of COVID. We are hosting a small invitational for our local technical assistance programs. We really want to prioritize awards to communities based on need. This year, too, will be a little bit different in that we're allowing communities to apply for safety-related technical assistance, which could include developing design studies and action plans to address, car, pedestrian, bicycle safety challenges. Thinking, too, about safety around grade rail crossings, intersection flooding, and ADA compliance challenges. So just wanted to make sure that you were all aware of that. And I'm pretty sure you're all aware that we opened the call for the STP Shared Fund and CMAC and TAP projects, too. So those are all relevant and available. I'm sure you'll be talking about those more. The last item of note I wanted to make here is just that we're placing, an increased commitment to taking action on traffic safety. The number of fatalities across our region has been increasing, and it's about equal in terms of where those fatalities happen, whether it's on our national highway system, which is managed by the state DOT, and local roads. And so we really lacked progress over meeting our performance measures, our performance targets, which you'll hear more about later in the agenda. But we'll be kicking off a safety resource group that'll meet later this month to inform a regional safety action agenda. And we really want to address some of these safety improvements through equity, engineering, education, enforcement, and emergency services and public health. So we're looking forward to working with you and experts from across the field to help us identify some ways that we can get ahead of this. I know part of it's engineering, but part of it's also behavioral. And so it really is going to take all of us, committed to changing the way that we think about traffic and transportation safety in the region. So we will continue to keep you all informed of this work. So last just little note here is that local dues are due January 31st. And so we'll be sending out some reminders here, but I want to thank you all for your commitment to the agency and giving me some time to just give you a few brief updates this morning. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Do we have any questions of our executive director? Let me just ask Aaron, for the benefit of the group here, can you give us a report of the status of our move from Sears Tower or Willis Tower over to the old post office and where that all stands right at the moment?
Absolutely. So we are 100% out of the Willis Tower. We are in the old post office on the 4th floor. And just recently, right before the holidays, they finished installing the historic tile. We're still waiting on a few elements that are coming, like some, those things that allow you to the safety locks on doors. If there were a fire, they'd release the doors and all that stuff. So we're waiting on a few of those sort of last details, but all of the furnishings are in, the cubicles are in, the kitchen is done. You know, it's beautiful. We've got some photos that we can certainly share with the committee that I took when I was there last week for the board meeting. And I hope that perhaps in the spring, when the weather's a little bit nicer, we'd be happy to walk you through if you wanted to come down and see. The rooftop is really cool too. They've got native plantings and bees, and it's just a really beautiful, beautiful historic space. They've done a great job restoring it.
Well, the one question I've heard from a couple of the members is, you know, this location is a little bit like Willis Towers. It's fairly convenient to the train stations, but if the situation arises where one of us has to drive down, is there a parking garage or someplace to park nearby there?
Yep, there's a parking garage in the building, and I'll say there's because it's like 2 blocks further south than the Willis Tower. There are a few lots that are also a little bit more inexpensive than right at the tower and across the street from the tower. So there's certainly plentiful parking.
Very good. Anybody else have any? Go ahead.
I can't guarantee the travel times, though.
That's what we're all about, you know. Anybody else have any questions or comments? I guess not.
Yeah,
So thanks.
I just wanted to share that there is some discounted parking for that, as was with the Sears Tower with various apps. So, you know, we can send that information out when we get to that point.
All right, very good. Okay, I'm trying to stick to my agenda here. I see it. Item 3 is approval of the minutes for the August 18th, 2020 and October 27th, 2020 meetings. I guess we've circulated those. Do we have any questions or not? I'd entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes for the October 27th meeting.
Gallagher moves.
Second by Hayes.
Okay, we have a motion and second for the approval. Any comments or questions? Ask the clerk to call the roll.
Okay, President Brady,
Yes.
President Darch,
Yes.
President Einhorn,
Yes.
President Gallagher,
Yes.
President Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Rockingham,
Aye.
Mayor Ryback,
Aye.
and Mayor Shelkey.
Aye. Motion's approved. All right. Moving then to, I guess it would be 4, which is the STP Project Selection Committee update. Comma?
Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. As Aaron mentioned a few minutes ago, the call for Cmap TAP and the STP Shared Fund is currently open through March 5th. The scoring methodologies that apply to that call were approved by the STP and Cmap project selection committees at their last meetings in October. Neither committee will meet again until April 1st after the call closes. So I just wanted to share some quick STP Shared Fund programming updates this morning. Through the end of December, about $9.5 million of $37 million in shared funds projects facing a March obligation deadline had been obligated. Another $19.6 million is awaiting agreement execution or FTA grant approval before the March deadline. Other projects that are programmed in federal fiscal year 21 with September obligation deadlines are currently proceeding toward lettings or phase authorizations throughout the year. On the STP local side, a little over 20 million of the 141 million programmed has been obligated so far in fiscal year 2021. A regional accounting summary for the shared fund and local programs is posted on Cmap's STP webpage, as are the summary sheets for the shared fund quarterly status updates for the quarter that ended in December 2020. That was really my short update for the morning. I'm happy to take questions regarding the accounting project status or open call for projects at this time.
Any questions of Kama? All right, well, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving then to item 5, which is the IDOT Bureau of Local Roads update. Chad Riddle.
I guess I'll unmute so I can talk. So Happy New Year, everybody. Hopefully it'll be a better year than last year in a lot of ways. Nothing really big to report. IDOT, I'll give you that update. We are still basically, everyone's, at least in local roads, is working remote. And again, I appreciate the work of the PLs, the consultants, the local agencies, and still moving things through the system efficiently through the use of electronics and all that kind of stuff. One good news is our lettings are picking up. Of course, the last half of last year, because of the STP transition, like September letting, we only had 3 projects, about $1 million total on that. So that was probably our lowest that I've been around for. But now we're picking up. November had 11 projects with 21 million. January, which was just opened last Friday, 13 projects for 31 million. And the next 3 lettings look pretty good. We got 12 going for March with about 27 million. A couple of those have right-of-way potential issues. April has 23, so that's a big one that locals are trying to get some projects out for this summer construction season, about 55 million. And June, we have about 11 projects for about 90 million, but one of those projects is like a $50 million Will County project, and that takes a big hit on some of that. So we are ramping back up. Hopefully the program will be met and expended, but other than that, we're working diligently to make sure everything's moving well. And the one other thing I think maybe everybody's aware of, Anthony Quigley has retired. He was our regional engineer. So effective last week, we do have an acting regional engineer, Jose Rios, until they permanently fill that spot. So anything coming to the district, Jose Rios is the acting regional engineer and whatever. So if you have any questions on that, no big deal. But anything that comes in, we'll get to the right person. With that, I'll take any questions or comments. And again, Happy New Year, everybody, and let's look for a good one.
Okay, do we have any questions or comments from the Council of Mayors Executive Committee? Chad, I guess I'll ask one just on behalf of everybody. Is there any major projects that are going to occur this year which are going to be somewhat traffic disruptive, that there'll be some slowdown in some roads? Is there some particular area that you think we could have some significant amount of construction that will impact traffic?
I'll be honest. I mean, I'm only aware of what's going on locally, so I'm not sure. And I don't think we really have anything that's really major. You know, most of ours are either going to be bridge projects, which are spot projects, right, or resurfacing, reconstruction projects, which are not usually, you know, the major. Nothing like the Jane Byrne interchange or anything like that. So again, that's something that, again, I can't be aware of, but maybe that's a note that someone could ask when they do the next transportation committee, as far as what the states has on their agenda for what's coming up, as well as maybe the tollway. But you're looking through what I have through at least you know, the next couple of lettings, which would be this construction season. Nothing jumps out as far as being a major headache commuting wise or travel wise.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jeff. I'll get in after you. It's Mike Einhorn.
Well, go ahead and tell us what you wanted to say.
Chad, just so my understanding is correct, the use of the Rebuild Illinois funds that we were just noticed on the other day, that there was going to be a third distribution of the total of 6 that we're supposed to get. And we're supposed to use it in a fashion that would be commensurate with motor fuel tax. I am assuming that we can do overlays with that. Is that correct?
You need to look at, there's still a minimum criteria. You can't just do simple resurfacings with it. It's got to follow the MFT rules, but there's a criteria that it has to be bondable, which means it needs to have a longer lifetime and all that kind of stuff. So off the top of my head, I don't want to quote myself, but there is some in the previous circulars that talk about you can't do like LAFO projects and that kind of stuff. You need to do a little heavier, hefty pavement replacement, so you get that life that's no better than the 7 to 10 you get from a regular LAFO resurfacing, more of a pavement rehabilitation, which gives you that bondable thing. So there are stipulations, but again, thanks for bringing that up. You know, as far as the PLs. I put that out there for them. The bond money is out there. We are getting pressure to make sure it gets allotted and gets designated to projects, because the secretary is getting pressure from the Senate and things saying, well, they would sell in the bonds, but it's not being spent. And again, I know it takes some time to ramp these things up. So like I say, with that last circular letter, there was the information, whatever they call it, the information they want to put into the system. They want you to actually take your money you're going to get over the 6 payments and give us an idea where you think you might spend it. You're not locked into that, but at least know. We want to know that people are, if they're holding the money, it's because they have a project that's coming in 2022 and that kind of stuff. So they just want to make sure that the money is going to be spent and all this bond money isn't going to be left on the table. And no, we would have wasted all the interest they're paying on that. No, come the end of the bond period and it doesn't get spent.
Well, Chad, not to sound unhappy with the fact that we're going to get money, but they've already balked on this once. I already went out for engineering work, and then I was told we're not going to get any more. That's what everybody was told. So, you know, we need to land in one spot and stay there instead of piecemealing this thing out and letting everybody try to figure out what's going to happen, whether or not the right amount of money is going to show up on time. You know, part of that's of their own doing, because, you know, again, the last thing we heard was don't expect the remaining 4 allocations. So, you know, they can't be complaining about that. That was really done at their own hands.
Well, again, I'm not sure where that's coming. You know, I have not heard that, other than I've heard the 3rd one's coming out, and that should be on time. And as far as the other ones being held up, I've not heard anything official or rumored that it's going to, in fact, be that way.
Well, actually, after the first 2, then we were told don't expect any more. So I was already starting with, or had most of my engineering done. And I'm thinking to myself, what do I do? Cut back the size of the project? Or do I go ahead and try to figure out where else I can find money to cover it? Because it was a significant number. And if you only get, like for Crete's getting 90,000 times 6.
Yeah.
You know, if you only give me 2, that's a big difference between giving me all 6. So, just saying.
Like I say, I'm not. I can get some confirmation on that, because I have not heard, you know, anything. Because I think the last letter was saying the 3rd one's coming out, and they want you to fill out the information. You know, and I think that might be part of the idea that they're looking for, is the legislators looking for some, not guarantees, but some ideas where this money is going to be spent. And that's why they asked for that information spreadsheet, sign up, so they know, oh, this money is going to be designated, so it will be spent. Therefore, they don't feel bad, you know, bonding it out. So, and I understand it's like chicken or egg. You know, they want you to tell them where you're going to spend it, and you want to know how much money you're going to get to guarantee where you're going to spend it. So, I'll try to get some follow up from central office and see if there's any rumors or what the status is, and if so, I can follow up with Cmap and they can distribute the information.
All right, very good. Yes, go ahead.
Just real quick, I apologize. I do have to run down the street here to the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, so I'm going to have to drop off here. And I wish everybody a Happy New Year also. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Rockingham. Just to kind of pick up what Mayor Einhorn has just raised, you know, I think it's obvious that all of us on the call realize that, for lack of a better description, I will suggest that Illinois politically at the General Assembly right now is basically riding on an uncharted political road without a roadmap. And it has a lot of different twists and turns in it. And I really have great admiration, quite honestly, for IDOT and all the staff they're trying to do to work around the politics that seem to constantly raise their head. And, you know, at the end of the day, hopefully we'll get some stuff done here. But this is a kind of a delicate dance where you don't know who your next partner is going to be, I think, from a political perspective. So we just need to be very cautious and hopefully all stick together and keep our minds and eyes open to what's happening, because this is a moment in Illinois political history, like I suppose also at the nationwide, that hopefully at the end the right way will win out and we will continue forward. But this is there's a lot of us have some projects and other things we'd like to do. And, whether or not the money is going to be there, I guess always remains the big question in the room here. And certainly the IDOT staff, at least from everything I've experienced and witnessed in my role as local mayor and as this chairman, they do a very admirable job in trying to maintain the region and understand and deal with the politics that they're dealt. So I appreciate the good efforts of IDOT, and I just can't say enough for how I think they bring a level of professionalism to a political process that sometimes gets derailed because of the politics. And I really thank them for being professional through and through and doing what they needed to do. So, and I appreciate on the other side, Mayor Einhorn raising questions like that, and he's been very good at that. But I mean, that's what we need to do, is have an understanding amongst ourselves as to what's really happening here, and is it going to happen or is it not going to happen? And that's why it's imperative that we have these meetings every now and then where we can kind of, let it out as to what we sense and feel, and hope that, the word gets back to the powers that be at the political arena that, people are watching you who have great, programs and want to get some solid public policy in place and projects accomplished. And that's what we need to do as the Council of Mayors. So hopefully that remains our agenda, and we will continue forward in that vein. Anybody else want to jump on that conversation before we go to the next one?
Yeah, Mayor, just to wind things up here, the circular letter that was issued on 12th of January, 2021-04, talks about the information exchange, and actually right at the beginning of that, it talks about how IDOT will soon provide the third installment of the $1.5 billion program, and the requirements we're asking for an information exchange to lay out your plan and account for all your funds. And again, they'd like that completed by mid-February. So if you haven't seen it yet, make sure your staff has seen it. It was distributed to the planning liaisons. I think a lot of them have blasted it out to everybody on the committee. But again, according to my word is the third one's coming, and I've heard nothing as far as, 4, 5, and 6 are still going to be out there over the next year and a half.
Chad, what was the date on that?
January 12th, 2021, circular letter 2021-04. And they're available on our website. If you can't find it, talk with your planning liaison. They should have a copy. I PDF'd it to them.
All right. Any other conversation on that subject? Okay, we'll move then to item 6, which is the Regional Safety Action Agenda. Victoria Jacobson.
Thank you, Mayor Shelkey. Good morning, everyone. My name is Vicki Jacobson. I joined Cmap in September of last year. I'm a transportation planner with a background in multimodal planning and policy work. I am going to be focusing on the regional traffic safety agenda as I begin my work this year, which Aaron mentioned at the beginning of this meeting. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about our plan today and hopefully get some input and feedback from you all when we're finished. Next slide, please. So CMAP's Regional Traffic Safety Action Agenda is a response to a number of concerning trends and emerging needs in our region. Traffic fatalities, as Aaron mentioned, are on the rise, not just in our region, also in our state and indeed nationally. And we saw that exacerbated by the stay-at-home order, which was a bit of a surprise and revealed some problems with our transportation system. But we were focusing on some longer-term trends in our region for this project. As you may know, CMAP has a federal mandate to set traffic safety targets. So we have not been meeting those targets since we've been mandated to set them beginning in 2014, which is one of the reasons why our Transportation Committee has asked us to look at ways that we could begin to try to meet those targets, our highway safety performance targets. There are increasing concerns about safety on our local road system. As Aaron mentioned earlier, we are seeing many crashes and safety issues occurring on local and county roads in our region. So there may be an opportunity for us to help in a very systemic way our local governments address safety through policy and or design. In addition to those concerns, there are some emerging concerns regarding equity and traffic safety. There have been a lot of issues caused by the enforcement of traffic safety laws in our country and indeed in our region. We want to make sure that when we are looking at ways to improve safety, that it is through a very strong equity lens. And then finally, we're seeing growing numbers of and interest in active transportation modes. That's bicycling and pedestrian activity. And this was occurring before the pandemic. Certainly, it became a very popular mode for many during the stay-at-home order because it provided an opportunity to travel while maintaining social distancing. And those are vulnerable modes. Those are modes that are generally unprotected by a vehicle shell. So they are of particular concern when it comes to safety. So I'll just quickly go over the numbers. You'll see these are all traffic fatalities in our Cmap area. The blue line is the actual numbers, and then the red dotted line is our 5-year average, which is a something that traffic fatalities are often averaged over 5 years because there is a high degree of randomness in whether a fatality occurs. And the 5-year average allows us to kind of smooth out some of that randomness. But you can see that beginning in 2014, our region, we saw that line trend upwards after decades of relative decline in traffic fatalities, not just regionally, but nationally. Next slide, please. And pointing to the pedestrian and bicyclist fatalities and serious injuries in our region, we also are seeing our 5-year average trend line tick upwards. So pedestrians and bicyclists now represent an increasing number in our fatalities and serious injuries on our roadway, which is going to be another focus of our work. So as we solve for traffic safety in our region, it's important to frame that work in the Onto 2050 principles of inclusive growth is the first principle that we're going to kind of frame our work with. And the ties to safe mobility in terms of inclusive growth is making sure that as we address safety, we're making sure that our transportation system works better for everyone. That means efficient and equitable infrastructure for all modes in all areas of our region. And our plan specifically calls out the need to focus on bicycle and pedestrian activity. We want to, speeding is an issue that has been on the radar, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. It's an issue that we've been tracking for a while, and that's again, both regionally and nationally. Our plan also calls for a Vision Zero approach to eliminate all traffic deaths, to aim for a plan that eliminates all traffic deaths in our region by 2050. The second principle of the Onto 2050 plan is the resilience piece, which has an obvious tie-in to climate change, but there's a sustainability element to it that relates to traffic safety, which is a little bit more overarching. So not only does this mean supporting the climate-friendly modes that I just discussed, the active transportation modes that don't produce as much greenhouse gases as private automobiles do, it also means that we'll look to infrastructure solutions that are relatively green and could reduce flooding and not create additional safety issues as our region deals with, extreme weather events and extreme precipitation events. Certainly COVID has kind of thrown a curveball at us all. And now as we deal with transportation safety, we also have a public health element that we plan to address. Certainly transit has suffered from ridership decline in all of this. And as we solve for additional solutions in making our transportation system safer, we will consider those priorities. And then the other resilience piece is this idea that when we saw a drop in travel demand on our highways, we actually, we would have expected to see a drop in traffic fatalities, but it was the opposite. So what we found is that our transportation system wasn't particularly resilient in terms of accommodating this change in travel demand. So if there are ways that we can address that from a policy or design standpoint, we will look to those kinds of options as well. Finally, in terms of prioritized investment, Cmap is committed to trying to elevate the role safety plays in our projects. We have always focused on safety, but we want to make sure that the most current information, data, and considerations are included as we advance projects within the Cmap purview, and also as we try to lead our local municipalities on project selection in terms of making sure all projects advance traffic safety. Next slide, please. So the mission then of our Regional Traffic Safety Action Agenda is to address regional traffic safety in a comprehensive, equitable, data-driven, and collaborative way. We believe that Cmap may be among a few MPOs in our country that is trying to address safety on the regional level. Traditionally, Cmap has been a state DOT issue, and we are excited to try to kind of pioneer some new territory by being an MPO that wants to address it on a regional scale and provide resources to local governments in our region. As I mentioned, we're going to center the work around Cmap's values. The ways in which Cmap can actually affect change will be a strong filter. So how can we be a leader in this and actually make meaningful difference in traffic safety? And then, as I mentioned, our guiding principles. We will have lots of partners on this project as well, including IDOT, and we expect to collaborate closely with people who are already doing a lot of work on the safety issue to see how we can help. So traditionally, traffic safety has been broken into the 4 E's of engineering, education, emergency services, and enforcement. And some of those are quite obvious. We plan to tackle safety from any aspect where we can affect positive change. The one difference, and this is a national movement that's happening, is that, again, enforcement has been associated with problems far worse than the traffic safety laws they were intended to help. So we plan to bring a strong equity lens to solutions that we put forward, and our resource group, which I'll discuss in a minute, reflects that. Next slide, please. So there are 4 primary components of our action agenda, and I'll go through each of these in a few minutes. The first one is the people and collaboration piece. The second one is the information and research piece. The third one is getting kind of on the ground practice with projects. And then the fourth piece is generating useful deliverables to the municipalities and all of our partners in the region. So the first piece is the partnership piece, and this is what we're calling the Regional Traffic Safety Resource Group, which Erin mentioned will kick off actually next week. These are regional partners who have already been working on the safety issue from multiple perspectives. So we'll have folks from engineering, education and behavior change, emergency services and enforcement. And in addition, we're going to have some strong advocates for the equity lens that we want to bring to the work that we do. The resource group will meet probably 6 or so times over the next 18 to 24 months. So it's not a long-term group, but it's one that will help us focus our research and our deliverables on a very mission-driven timeline. We will we will use that group to help generate the data, research, and best practices on safety at the regional level. So data is a huge source of, well, of controversy, to be honest, on safety. there are a lot of issues with existing data sources in terms of completeness and underreporting of certain types of crashes. So there's a movement to look at new sources of data on safety. And sometimes, I mean, we're exploring those options, and we'll use our resource group to kind of focus that exploration. But there are connected device, you know, data sources where cars or cell phones are connected to, you know, GPS. We can locate crashes, or we can locate conflicts. There's a growing interest in understanding where close calls are happening with terms of traffic crashes, so that we're not just responding to the places where crashes are actually happening, because there can be a lot of close calls that indicate problem areas that we could address before a crash happens. And that idea is behind this predicting outcomes and giving good policy and design guidance at the beginning, so that we're taking a preventative approach to traffic safety rather than reactive. Next slide, please. The third piece of the action agenda is the doing while planning piece, we're calling it. We are also this month kicking off a Flossmoor local road safety plan project, which is a pilot project that will help us understand what the safety needs are for local governments in our region, and start to understand how we can deliver both information and resources to our partners in the region. We also hope that we can generate some kind of in-progress research or resources for local governments, whether that's data or guidance. You know, Erin said we're ready to tackle the behavior side as much as we can as well. So if we can link our local partners with resources, whether that's funding or information or campaigns, we will look at those options as well. And as I mentioned earlier, the idea is that we incorporate these lessons learned from these practice projects into all of our project selection processes to the best extent possible. And then finally, the end goal of our action agenda is to deliver implementation tools and resources for all of our partners in the region that could look like data and analysis of where crashes are occurring. It could look like policy guidance to help local governments enable certain types of solutions locally. We've talked about a safety charter sign-on in the region, where governments will be asked to make a commitment to a certain safety agenda or certain practices in terms of multimodal transportation safety. And again, we're interested in taking safety beyond the engineering solutions to address the human dimensions, and again, the equity dimension. It's very important to us. So we want to ultimately have a region where our streets function better for everyone. They protect life and prevent injury for all people in our region and all modes of travel. We think that our initial focus areas, which I mentioned, will be on bicycle and pedestrian safety and speed management, which both regionally and nationally are particular areas of concern. So with that, this is my contact information. I'd love to have a conversation with you all, and I'd love to take any questions or comments you have about regional traffic safety right now.
Do we have any questions for Victoria? Well, I'll just offer one up as in my own particular situation in Batavia. I've got a downtown that has a lot of unique amenities. I've got a river, I got hills, and I've got bicycle trails on all sides of my town that run along the river or through the downtown. And one of the great issues I am faced with right at the moment is that we have a huge arrival of skateboards into the community. And they seem to mix not real well very often with the bicycles, because many of them are on the bicycle trails. But the one thing that we got with skateboards is, one thing we've already found out is that many of those people on those skateboards seemingly don't have any insurance underneath them. And if they hit somebody or they injure themselves, that becomes an interesting question. And are there insurance on skateboards? That's something I think you should probably try to find out what that number may be. But There's also a seemingly a pretty widespread opinion by bicycle riders that they don't necessarily have to adhere to the stop signs and any other traffic control devices you have set up in your community. They seem to think they can just roll right through, and that's another problem that we have. So those are my issues with the whole thing. I applaud what you're trying to do. It's something that we need as a region to get our arms wrapped around. But this is a pretty widespread, involved with a many-faceted issue program that I'm glad we are tackling it. So thank you, Victoria, and your committees for what you're trying to do. And I'd be very interested in maybe attending one or two of your sessions and just shoot my mouth off about what I've found as a working mayor in a town where all this is happening.
That's great. Thank you. We'd love to have you, Mayor Schalke. And I'll say that I come from a standpoint where I believe that all users of our roadway system should know basic traffic laws. You know, if you're operating on our street system, that it's better for everyone, not only in terms of your own personal safety, but also for the safety of others to understand traffic laws. So we'll be looking at education programs that can further that for sure.
Anybody else have any questions, comments? Well, thank you for this report. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to 7, local government network update, Patrick Day.
Hello, thank you, Mayor. Good morning to you all. I'm happy to provide this update on the newly established local government network, or LGN. Most or all of you are already aware of this initiative and are active participants, but for those less familiar, this past May, Cmap launched an all-agency effort to strengthen our ongoing communications with local leaders by pairing Cmap staff with each of the 284 municipalities in the region. Over the last quarter, we updated contacts following the most recent election cycle, and we performed some augmented outreach to extend the network to more municipalities and establish primary contacts with each of the municipalities. Currently, the LGN has established communications with 262 municipalities. That's over 90% of the region's municipalities. Also, since our last update in October, the network wrapped our 4th initiative. It was a personal invitation to staff and officials from counties and municipalities to our Cmap Talks shared services discussion, and launched our 5th initiative, which is currently underway. The 4th initiative, the Cmap Talks event, was very well attended. There's a lively discussion on the subject of shared service and coordinated investment best practices. Success stories were shared. Some of the challenges to those coordination types were discussed. And there were 197 individuals registered for the event per communications, and that resulted in 140 attendees. And of those, 91 were local government staff. 7 worked for counties, 84 for municipalities. And based on our timelines, the metrics that we're using, it seems that a third of those attendees were directly from reach outs through the network. Currently, the network is performing its 5th initiative, which is to build awareness of 2 upcoming Cmap technical assistance opportunities. The first is Cmap and RTA's joint call for planning assistance. As Aaron mentioned, this opens tomorrow and will be a brief window, just for 2 weeks. It closes on February 3rd. So we encourage you to apply for that or direct staff to discuss which projects might be most appropriate and respond. And the second piece of this 5th initiative is we are conducting a survey to better understand what public space initiatives have taken place in 2020 out of necessity and perhaps should become permanent post-pandemic. Once completed, the survey information will be turned into a consortium on public space innovation, and it will be a forum to share what communities have learned. It'll be peer exchange and really taking solutions that were developed out of necessity and turning them into best practices, which is pretty exciting. So I encourage you to, again, direct staff to complete that survey or complete it yourself when you have a moment. Whether what you think you did was it particularly innovative or not, if you're just interested in learning more about what peers might have done, please mark that. It should take less than 5 minutes. Finally, I just wanted to extend an offer from Cmap's Communications Division, which is a somewhat new offer of coming out to a village board meeting, getting on agendas, and giving a comprehensive overview of Onto 2050 and how it intersects with the mission of each of the local governments. So it can be flexible, roughly 20 minutes, and it would provide a concise update on resources offered by Cmap and allow questions to be answered in person, and also description of policy guidance and other data that could be helpful to the participants. If you have any interest in that, please contact Jane Grover. That concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions if you have them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of Patrick? Well, thank you very much, Patrick. An interesting process that you've initiated, so thank you very much. Moving to 8, legislative discussion and update from Gordon Smith. Gordon.
Mayor, how are you today? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Excellent. I'm going to be very brief. There is a lot going on both at the state and federal level, but not a lot to report at this point in time. And so what I will share with you is we are continuing to monitor the activities at the federal and state level. The state is still, organizing itself with some new leadership in the House. And at the federal level, we are, just again, monitoring the situation as it advances, but we are working on developing some federal transportation reauthorization principles that you will be made aware of shortly or in the very near future. But what we did want to share with you today is our activity to update our state and federal legislative agendas. And so I wanted to kick it over to Anthony Cefali and Tim McMahon to give you an update. So I'm going to kick it over to Anthony.
Thanks, Gordon. Good morning, everyone. My name is Anthony Cefali, and I work for Gordon here in the Government Affairs Group at Cmap. I just want to briefly add some context to the state legislative agenda and go over some of the recommendations, as well as our legislative agenda development process and highlight next steps for how we're going to reach members of the General Assembly. Cmap's legislative agendas, as well as the Onto 2050 legislative framework and capital funding principles, are all policy-driven documents that connect the agency's research to the legislative process. The framework, as well as the capital principles, allow us to react to major policy and revenue proposals based on the research and recommendations of Onto 2050. The agendas are the more active documents, and they identify opportunities to implement major recommendations. In the wake of COVID, many of these recommendations haven't changed, but the urgency has become much more pronounced. With that in mind, the following items comprise Cmap's legislative agenda for the 102nd Illinois General Assembly. First, we have support transparent, equitable, performance-based capital programming, followed by collecting and supporting the data needed to support decision-making and accountability. Both of those have been pillars of Cmap's legislative programs. Reform tax policy to strengthen communities, enhance transportation revenues to fully fund a multimodal system that works better for everyone, and of course, allocate funds for all comprehensive regional planning activities. Government Affairs staff plans on using the agenda document to conduct outreach to members of the General Assembly, as well as state technical and budget staffs, the Governor's Office, state agencies, state partners, and all of these with the goal of advancing key Onto 2050 legislative initiatives. As of last week, there was a lot of General Assembly activity, as Gordon alluded to. We're kind of going through all of that now, and we anticipate more updates for all of you at the next meeting. Just a few calendar updates. Governor Pritzker will give the state budget address on Wednesday, February 17th, and we will have more information about how the General Assembly will proceed at that time. The Senate calendar is currently posted. All major deadlines are following historic state calendar deadlines, and we'll just have more information for you going forward. I will now pass this presentation along to Tim, and I'll be available with Gordon to answer any questions at the end. Thanks.
Thanks, Anthony, and good morning, everyone. My name is Tim McMahon, and I work on our federal affairs team here at Cmap. I just want to provide a brief overview of our federal legislative agenda for this upcoming session of Congress. So similar to the state agenda, the main changes that were made to the federal agenda included incorporating language that addresses COVID-19, provides a greater focus on equity, and incorporates recommendations that reflect CMAP's core implementation focus areas of transportation, climate, and regional economic competitiveness. So at the beginning of the agenda, you'll find shared regional principles for COVID relief and recovery that were crafted with regional input last year. One of the main priorities in these principles, which is yet to happen, and we are still monitoring this with our congressional partners and hopeful that this will happen in the future, is additional fiscal relief across all levels of government in the form of direct state and local aid. The principles also ask for continued and increased support for transit, broader eligibility for COVID relief funds, a focus on investments that are timely, performance-based, and will also account for resiliency and mitigating climate change as we hopefully move to the recovery phase of this pandemic. So next in the agenda are the Cmap surface transportation reauthorization recommendations, which everyone here should be familiar with. This includes calls for sustainable revenues for our transportation system, strengthening transit, reforming funding to achieve national performance goals, a greater role for regions in programming funds, reducing transportation emissions and climate adaptation, using emerging technologies to improve mobility and safety, and lastly, recommendations for national freight policy. The final four sections cover CMAP's recommendations for climate and the environment, improving data transparency at the federal level, promoting affordable housing options and policies, and improving economic and workforce growth to advance equity through increased coordination with our federal partners. So the next steps here are that upon the Cmap board's approval at next month's meeting, we'll distribute the agenda to our congressional partners in the region. It will also be used for our biannual congressional staff briefing, and we'll use it as a reference point as we conduct legislative analysis and provide technical assistance throughout this upcoming session of Congress as potential COVID relief packages and an infrastructure bill are considered. With that, if you have any questions on either the state or federal agendas, we would be happy to answer those now. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions on the state or federal agendas? Well, I'll just throw my 2 cents in here for the good of whatever. I'm watching with great interest this dispersal of the census numbers for Illinois that haven't seemed to appeared yet. I don't know what the reasons are behind that, but I'm told that when the census comes out, there's a good possibility Illinois could lose at least 1 congressional seat, and there's some people that say we could lose 2. And so that's going to probably create quite an uproar in what's happening in the region as far as what impacts that has and who gets taken off the shelf as far as a congressional seat. The other thing I would just tell you, having had the opportunity on some other venues I'm involved with to talk to a number of the people who are now either in Congress or in the Illinois General Assembly, I think there needs to be a pretty basic list of things given to each one of those folks as to what within their given political districts are our priorities. Is there new roads? Is there new bike trails? Is there new safety measures? Is there new housing plans or whatever it is that we're going to be advocating? I think it sounds like you're doing it, but we really need to get into the face of all these folks what it really is we're trying to accomplish, because we've got a few new ones out there that I'm not sure they even know who we are or what this is all about. And they just need some in-your-face education as to the importance of what we're trying to do here as a region. And I don't say any of them are dumb people or not nice or whatever, but there's a lot of them that I've run into that are pretty basic and don't really understand everything that's going on here and really need to be educated as to what are our objectives and our goals and what are our priorities of things we'd like to accomplish. So I appreciate all the good work Gordon and his staff do. I think they do a marvelous job, but they've got a heavy lift right at the moment. Number one, with the political people that are out there, many of whom are newly elected. And secondly, the big question mark on the region as to, are we going to lose a congressional seat, or is there going to be some shifting of some of our areas out to other more rural areas and combining districts? some real wild cards in the room are present on the table at the moment. Anybody else? All right, well, I guess, Gordon, you got any final comments to make?
No, Mayor. I mean, there's a lot going on, a lot that needs to be fleshed out. We're going to continue to monitor the activities going on at both the state and federal levels, and we'll be reporting that out to you all at your next meeting. Again, there's a lot going on, a lot to be to be seen or to be determined, but we are continuing our efforts to update you as things become available.
And we thank you for that. You've got a real challenging moment here. As I said earlier, I think we're running the region now without a roadmap, or running the state, not the region, the state without a roadmap. And down at the General Assembly, I don't know if we really know yet what direction we're going or what we're trying to do or not do. So a lot of questions to be answered, and there's probably a lot of need for those of us who are mayors to get in the face of our state legislators and let them know what our opinions are on some of this stuff. So it shouldn't all be carried by our staff. We need to get our political faces involved in this, because I think that's the only way in some instances the messages are going to get across. All right, I'm doing a lot of talking here today. Do we have any other business? Okay, it says for members who have joined, please feel free to send in comments and through chat or whatever, and we will try to. Do we have any public comment from anybody?
Mayor, no, none has come in, Mayor Shoki.
All right. Well, then let's go to next meeting, which if there's no other public comment, the next Council of Mayors Executive Committee will be on April 20th. If there's no other business before the committee, I'm adjourning the meeting. I look forward to seeing you all in April. So I thank everybody and thank the staff for your continued great job and in a time of great challenge. So appreciate all the good efforts.
Thank you, Mayor.